Mike, you've been at the helm of some major media organisations. First of all, your reaction to this news?
Well, I mean, to use the biggest cliche in our business, it's a bombshell, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we all knew it was coming. Over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've seen it coming together. If you think about it, what is the greatest division we've ever seen in a pair of two talented people who conquered the world? It has to be Lennon-McCartney, isn't it? It has to be the fact that eventually, if you've got two people who are driven, who are dynamic, who are talented, and who want to input, a great duo team, eventually they're going to say to each other, look, I want this and you want that, and I want to go this way, you want to go that way, and eventually it splits up. This has taken a long time, but you've got to remember these two were very, very close. I'm told they were so close that their families went on holiday together. I read a piece this morning saying they had villas next door to each other in Portugal, that each of them shared their other children's birthday parties, known as uncle and auntie to their respective children. I mean, very, very close indeed. But 20 years Phil's been on the show. Holly came on as a junior, really, and was in Phil's shadow. And what's really happened over the last not 20 years, probably the last 3, 4, 5, is that Holly has emerged from under the shadow of Phil. And as she has, Phil, who's older, his stars begun to wane a bit. And I don't think people really understand the significance of Queengate, the queue, okay?
Yes.
Because it was a terrible row about whether or not they jumped the queue, and they were accused of it quite massively, within the media. And Holly wanted to address that because she said, there's no way in the world I was going to be special. I wanted to be one of the people. Phil, on the other hand, did not want to address it, and therefore there was a simmering discontent as to why, in Holly's view, there wasn't a public explanation of what happened there, but Phil wasn't interested in explaining. And it gave people the feeling that he felt he was above it all and didn't need to do it. His brother, unfortunately, got himself into a situation which we all know about. Only today, I think, or yesterday, his brother was sentenced to a very long term in jail after being convicted of very serious sexually orientated offences. Again, I think Holly felt really put out because she didn't know anything about it coming. If you work as a very close team like that, then you've got to know that if something's coming out of left wing, if something's coming to smack you in the face like that, you've got to be prepared to be able to accept it and respond to it. She felt she wasn't. The other great issue here is that Holly's husband, a guy called Dan, his name now, Dan Baldwin, is in charge of a very big and successful production company within television. And I think Dan Baldwin, that's Holly's husband, has seen opportunities for Holly, for her to take her career on, which simply do not involve Phil, who, after 20 years, has had a great run, but some would say inside the business, now needs to either step back or take a different direction.
I don't know why I had such a coughing fit when I had to read out the statement that he's always tried to be kind. But it's not Phillip Schofield's fault that his brother is a massive paedophile. However, Schofield now has baggage, and it was awkward watching him on This Morning. That's going to be the big theme of my take at 10, which you need to see because I've got a big announcement to make. But it was awkward this week watching him on the show. Why will it be any less awkward when he's fronting other formats for ITV? If you were the boss of ITV and you've been in charge of newspapers, you ran TalkSport for many years, would you keep him on your books or would you shove him out altogether?
I think one of the big issues, as you know as well as me, Mark, is that it's all very well saying we're going to have a change, but when you take such a massively, audience-bringing show out of the schedule, The main problem is you've got to find something put in its place. And that's, it's almost like a football club. If you sell your centre forward, that's okay, but you've got to find somebody to fill that gap. Do you see what I mean? But I think the issue now is that figures are dropping in this mid-morning show with Schofield and Holly. I think that their peak about 3 years ago, they were over 2 million. Yes. I think they're down now to something like 799,000 or something like that. So what I'm saying is, it's not a sudden U-turn, handbrake, we're going to do something else. I think the figures are forcing it. I think the relationship between Phil and Holly has absolutely forced it, because you're right in what you've just said. The audience now are almost cringing and hiding behind the sofa whilst they're watching this show. It can't possibly go on. Only this morning it's announced, I don't think it's been verified yet, that after this week there will be a break in this show. So it's terminal in my view. It's got to go, because not just the fact that it doesn't seem to be working on air anymore, but the speculation, which is massive, is that they can't work together again. And if that's the case, everybody doubts it. It's got to change.
Interesting. Very briefly, Mike, I've only got a couple of seconds, but are you suggesting that at a certain point ITV need to axe This Morning altogether? Are you saying that essentially that format is now in its dying days?
I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm not a great programme maker or programme director. What I'm saying is,
so I've heard,
that you've got to change. Nothing can stay the same. You've got to change. You've got to look at changing, and I'm sure they will.